The $180,000 problem is simple. I want the average agent that works for me to generate $180,000 gross. And I would say that this is an easy goal for 99% of agents that are willing to take my advice and follow this very simple process. Some of you guys have heard this conversation before, so for you guys I apologize, but you need to hear it again, I imagine. This could also be translated into the $1.8 million problem. The $1.8 million problem is just take everything that I'm going to tell you today and times it by 10. I think it's very possible for an agent that's smart and talented, like Debbie, like the agents that we coach, to have a really massive business, to make gross $180 to $1.8 million. The reason I picked $1.8 million is because the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book said that if you gross $1.8 million, you would net $1 million. And I think if you can net $1 million, you have a pretty huge world. And that's what I want for everybody in my life, is to have a really huge world. I'm going to make some assumptions in the $180,000 problem. The $180,000 problem says that you're going to sell homes where the average price is $250,000. Now, if you have a higher price market or a lower price market, you're just going to have to make adjustments based on your own economy. I'm also going to make an assumption that on average you generate 3% commission. If you wanted to make $180,000 selling $250,000 properties at 3% commission, you would simply divide those numbers and you would equal that you would have to sell 24 properties a year at $250,000. Now, I know some agents, one of them's in Chris's office actually. He goes out and he sells one property for $100 million. That's impressive. I sell $110 million worth of real estate this year, $250,000 at a time. And if I was in Las Vegas, I would be selling $100 million, $100,000 at a time. You do what you have to do. You sell what you have to sell. I will sell anything from a $40,000 trailer to a $20 million piece of dirt. We don't care. Let's start working on the problem. Because this is about making your best year ever, I want you to think about your business as a whole. What are the things that you're going to have to do, and what are the goals you want to write down? Take this template that I'm drawing for you today, write it out, and then come back and let's share what are our goals and how do the numbers work out for you. To make $180,000 a year, you're going to have to know how many properties you're going to have to sell to equal that. If your commissions or your price point varies, do the math accordingly. I'm going to guess that in an agent's business, they're going to have a balanced business where they're going to have buyers and they're also going to have sellers. If you have too much of one and not enough of the other, you're going to run into problems. I'm going to assume that not all the buyers that we work with and get pending are actually going to close, and I'm not also going to assume that not all the buyers that we meet with are actually going to go pending. Same thing with sellers. I'm going to assume that not all the listings that we list are going to sell this year, and not all the sellers that we meet with are going to actually list with us. This becomes the foundation of the $180,000 problem. To make $180,000 at $250,000 sales price, you simply have to sell 12 buyers or 12 sellers. The problem is when you focus at a level of 24 transactions, this is the goal, this is what I want to do in my life, is I want to sell 24. That is not something that you can affect. You can't affect the end outcome of 24 sales. That is not something that you can stare at all year and it'll happen. What ends up happening is people write on their wall, I'm going to sell 20 properties this year, 36, or whatever that number is going to end up being. And at the end of the year, they've done half of that and they wonder what happened. What happened was they're focusing on the wrong thing. If I knew that every buyer that it got pending wasn't going to actually close and every listing that I took wasn't actually going to sell, I would have to do some math. And here's some of the math that we deal with. Making the assumption that not every buyer that gets pending actually closes, I'm going to be pessimistic, extremely pessimistic for you guys today. And I'm going to say that only 50% of the properties that penned will actually close. If that was the case, that would need to be that I would need to get 24 buyers pending. That means I'd have to write offers, get mutual acceptance, and get 24 pending. Not that those buyers wouldn't necessarily go buy something else if the deal falls apart, but you know how buyers are. They go out the day before closing and they go buy a brand new Ford 150 for $50,000 and now they're not qualified. Or they spend all their money on something and now they can't get the loan. You know, there's silly things that happen. The short sale doesn't get approved. You've been waiting on for 3 or 4 months. Not every deal you pen gets closed. Same thing with sellers. Now, not that you can't sell all your listings or you can't sell a majority of your listings, but here's the reality, is we're at December 15th-ish right now. Not all the listings that you have right now are going to close by the end of the year. So the listings that you take in 2012, some of them are going to carry over into 2013. Also, some of them might cancel, some of them might expire, some sellers might not be realistic, some short sales might get turned down, some of the properties might go into foreclosure. It's a reality. You need to be a little bit pessimistic. I'm going to say for this business model that you need to get at least twice as many properties listed as you expect to close. So my goal for the year would be, in this scenario, would be to get 24 properties listed. Knowing that not every buyer that I meet with is going to actually write an offer, we need to be pessimistic as well. In my real estate business, if I can do a buyer consultation with a client, a sit-down actual consultation, 2 out of 3 buyers will end up writing a contract with me. What I know is that's too hard a math to do, so I'm just going to be more pessimistic and say 50%. So I'm going to need to meet with 48 separate buyers to get 24 of them to write an offer so that I can get 12 closed. Now, the same thing with sellers. It ends up happening, you go out on canceled expired appointments, or you're talking to somebody and they end up interviewing a couple different agents. You're not going to get every listing that you meet with. Some listings you're just going to choose not to list yourself. Because of that, let's be pessimistic again, and let's believe that only 50% of the appointments that you go on for sellers are going to actually list with you. I know we're being pretty pessimistic, but this is what we end up with. It's going to take 48 appointments to get 24 pending or 24 listed, to get 12 buyers sold and 12 sellers sold, to get 24 sold total for the end of the year so that you can make $180,000. What I want to talk about is this idea of having a really great life. If you have a great life, then I want you to start taking some time off. If you haven't taken any vacation off in a while, you need to go back and apologize to your husband or your spouse and say this year is going to be different. I would expect you to take a week off for education. You're going to go to some national real estate convention. Maybe you're going to go to Agent Reboot or to a RainCamp or to one of your brokerage conventions, something like that. You're going to take a couple weeks off for camping or family, vacations, that kind of stuff. And maybe, God forbid, you're going to end up being sick a couple days. Well, let's say you end up taking 4 weeks off a year. The math is simple. You take 4 weeks off and you have 52 weeks a year, that would leave you with 48 weeks, which is really ironic because right before I just said that you need to get 48 buyer appointments and 48 seller appointments. So what I'm saying is if that was the case, all you would need to do is get 1 buyer appointment and 1 seller appointment every single week. Now, that is much easier to focus on. You can't focus on I'm going to sell 24 properties during the year. That's an untangible goal. You can't affect that outcome. But you sure could wake up Monday morning and say, you know what, by Sunday, I'm going to meet with 1 new buyer and I'm going to meet with 1 new seller. That is easy. Now, if you can't do that, if you can't meet with 1 new buyer, 1 new seller every single week, there's only 1 of 3 things that could be happening. I call this the real estate success principles. There's only 3 things that will determine if you're successful or you're not in real estate. Number 1, are you saying the right thing? Do you have the scripts and dialogues in place so that when you talk to these people, they are encouraged to do a buyer consultation or do a seller consultation with you? The second real estate success principle, are you saying it enough times? Do you wake up every day and do you have a goal that you're going to say the right words enough times to enough people every single day? Now, for me, I know that if I call 52 canceled expireds or FSBOs, I'll talk to 12 to 13 and I'll get 1 listing appointment. If I say it enough times, I get my listing appointment. You could sit today and after RainCamp, you could get on the phones and you could get 1 or 2 listing appointments by the end of the day, I promise, if you just picked up the phone and dialed. Saying it enough times. The third real estate success principle is simple. Do you have enough people to say it to? And if you don't have enough people to say it to, that's just a lead problem. You just need some more sources of leads, and I'll go through the sources of leads that we have. But I'm talking about internet leads you're getting from your IDFs. I'm talking about blogging leads, sign calls, canceled expireds, door knocking, open house people. Like, there's, in my opinion, no shortage of people to work if you have a plan in place to work it. Now, if you wanted to have a much bigger goal and you wanted to net $1 million by making $1.8 million in commission, just multiply it all by 10, and all you'd have to do is simply 10 buyer appointments and 10 seller appointments every single week. to sell 240 properties a year. Now, some of you guys are sitting back here and thinking, gosh, that's a lot of appointments. It's not that hard if you get a couple buyer's agents and a couple team members working for you. Each of them try to do 1 or 2 a week, and you're going to hit your goals. You're going to have a really big life. This is the $180,000 problem. It's simple. 24 properties sold at $250,000 at 3% commission will make you $180,000 simply following this method. I hope this helps you guys in planning out your year. What I want you to do when you set your goals for 2012 is not only to tell me how many properties you want to sell, I want you to say how much money you want to make, how many properties you have to sell to do that, how many will come from buyers, how many will come from sellers, how many pendings you'll need and how many listings you'll need, and then how many appointments you'll have to go on. And then you can work your way backwards and say, well, how many leads am I going to need to make all this happen? And then your success just becomes a mathematical problem. Nobody can stop you. The market can't stop you, nothing. You become invincible.